Hey everyone, my name is Bryce Rankins, and you're listening to episode 12 of Sneaky Geek. Hi everybody, and welcome back to another exciting episode.
Stop. You are not excited enough for what you're like. I'm so stoked to talk about this, and you're like, hello everybody.
I'm trying
My
to
name
be
is Bryce.
calm.
Don't be calm. Jeez.
Holy balls.
Holy friggin' balls.
Okay, hang on.
Oh, did I peek big time?
You peeked.
I also yelled directly into it.
Hi everybody, and welcome back to another super excited...
No, just keep it going. Keep it going.
Listen, freaking Justice League was great.
Yeah, boom. That's what we were trying to get to.
Thanks for coming. We'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay.
Anyways.
We saw Justice League yesterday, 2 days ago.
Yesterday. It was yesterday.
I saw it Tuesday.
Okay.
Zig saw it Tuesday. Brian and I saw it at the movie theater. It was magical.
Jazz hands.
Oh, by the way, Dave is here.
Jazz hands.
Hey, Dave.
Brian is here.
Hey, guys.
Howdy.
Bryce is here.
Hey, Bryce.
Hello.
Hey, guys. And we just saw Justice League, and in the words of Tate Reynolds, it did not suck. In fact, I fucking loved it.
It was really good. It was a lot better than I thought it would be. And I would love to pay to see it again.
I loved it.
Yeah.
It was all the things that I was worried about from the last one.
Yeah.
And even some things that I didn't mention. It was fantastic.
Right, yeah.
It was
a fun movie.
Yes.
Which none of the DC movies were before. Even Wonder Woman, which was great,
not fun.
wasn't that fun.
Well, it was
fun, but it wasn't.
It was not a fun story.
Right.
It was not a fun adventure.
Exactly.
This definitely had that adventure feel to it.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, it was so good. There's so much to talk about. So,
obviously, spoilers.
So many spoilers on the horizon. If you haven't seen Justice League yet,
Go see it right now. We'll wait. And we're back.
Hey, we're back.
All right.
Okay, so let's try to keep this as organized as we can. Let's look back to last episodes. In this case, if you haven't listened to our Justice League lead-up episode,
Episode 10.
Last time on Sneaky Geek.
feelings were shared on a very special episode.
Please put in some piano music for that too.
Last time on a very special episode of Sneaky Geek, feelings were shared. Ziggler cared.
Ziggler cries a lot anyway.
And Brian and Bryce were scared. Now, back. Okay, so we had a lot of fears going into this movie.
Yes, we
did. And one of the biggest things that I'm constantly telling people about, especially going into superhero movies, because they have so much lore and so much history surrounding them, is that going in with expectations can really damage your experience. If you know what the storyline's going to be and you are expecting it to be that, you might end up being let down. Or if you wind up expecting that it's kind of going to be crappy, sometimes you might project those feelings onto the film. And that was what kind of made Batman v Superman a little bit harder than I think it needed to be for me. But
I was going to say, especially how the last few movies went.
And I mean, not to go into the big giant Rotten Tomatoes conversation, but with Metacritics and all of these just massive outpourings of ability for people to see how the rest of the world is seeing a movie, it's making it so that people are going in with preconceived notions about the film before actually giving it a nice fair
But not
shot.
even their own preconceived notions. It's somebody else's.
Yeah. And I mean...
But there's a solution to that.
Stay off the internet and follow rule number 4.
Well, I mean, even if you don't follow rule number 4, by the way, for those of you who haven't been listening extensively, is I don't see trailers for movies I already know I'm going to see. Now, even if you follow rule number 4, you can go in with expectations really high or really low. That seeing the trailer to me is irrelevant to your level of expectation, because I didn't see the trailers and I was at least willing to give this movie a fair shake,
Right.
because, well, largely on the strength of how good Wonder Woman was.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I had some concerns, particularly, and you and I talked about this off the air, but particularly when they started announcing J.K. Simmons as Commissioner Gordon, Amber Heard as Mira. And I remember thinking, what the hell are all these people going to do in this movie?
Right.
And one of the things that I think this film did really well was it gave a sense of scope to the DC universe. It gave a sense that there are other things going on that we're not seeing, but that also did a really great job of explaining those things concisely where necessary.
Yeah.
Like the conversation with Mira and Aquaman.
Oh, yeah.
You know, it was short, it was to the point, it explains who she is, what her relationship to Aquaman is. Oh, and by the way, we're probably going to see more of this in the Aquaman movie.
Right.
And then we moved on.
And then moved on. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, and this again goes to, we had these expectations. We saw these giant list of casts and we're like, oh God, is this going to be a convoluted mess? Because frankly, that's what Batman vs. Superman was.
Among other things,
I mean, but it was a convoluted mess. It was confusing because there was just so much going on, but it was not given enough time to be like, wow, okay, I know more about this universe. But it was given enough to go, you don't know anything about this universe.
Not in a good way.
And not in a good way.
Anyways, we did that podcast where we negative, but
Yep.
Right.
So,
and one other thing to note is this movie was considerably shorter than Batman.
it was
Superman.
just over 2 hours.
But it did not feel cramped. It did not feel rushed.
nope.
There's a few times it did for me, but overall, no. Yeah.
Go on.
I think in the beginning of the movie, especially with some of the jumping around with Bruce Wayne going to like Aquaman or
The introduction of each character.
was a little quick and rushed.
It was certainly better than when they did it in Suicide Squad.
It was way better, 10 times better.
I have gone on record as not being a big fan of Suicide Squad, but I thought the way they introduced everybody in Suicide
The way
Squad
they did it was cool.
pretty clever.
It was
clever?
It was, and it was new, but they didn't spend enough time with each one, I think. That's to me.
For me, really, I mean, and not to go on the full rant, but the big problem with Suicide Squad is that they introduced every character except for one, and then he ended up being the guy they killed off immediately.
Yes.
And it was like, oh, really? The one you didn't tell us about is the one you're going to kill?
Yeah.
Oh, good job.
yeah,
Good job,
yeah,
Mr.
yeah.
Director, man.
Yeah, boy.
Also, if you know anything
Might as well
about
put
the
a
history
red
of the
shirt
Suicide
on.
Squad.
Yeah, but also they gave Joker and Harley a full-on movie inside the movie.
Yeah.
But that's a whole other podcast.
Whole nother podcast.
Like we say.
So let's talk about our fears beyond our regular expectations, the things that were concerning us. We came into this movie knowing full well that this was a Zack Snyder film.
Yes.
And unfortunately for Zack Snyder, some tragedies fell upon his family, and his film had to kind of be completed by Joss Whedon.
Right. And one of the comments that I made in the last podcast was kind of a cautionary, let's not put too much pressure on Whedon, because he was there for reshoots and editing.
Right.
So his ability to turn the ship was limited at best.
Certainly. But if you looked in the opening credits, Joss Whedon is credited as writer. He's not credited as a co-director by any means, which I thought was really cool. Nice respect.
I was wondering how they were going to handle that, and it makes sense.
And one of the reviews I read before I went to see the movie was that you could really tell where Whedon came in and where Snyder came in, and they were clashing really terribly. I didn't feel that way. I felt like it was really balanced.
So I could definitely see who did what. To me, that was kind of obvious, but not in a bad way. They meshed it pretty well together.
I could only really tell one spot.
Yeah.
And that was the spot at the beginning.
Oh, that was
my favorite part.
yeah.
I was crying for like 2 minutes into it. Here's the deal. So, that opening interview with Superman with the kids.
Which is so good. And
that's the guy that I was looking for in Man of Steel.
Oh, totally.
And Batman vs. Superman. That's the guy that I missed.
Oh, yeah.
And as he's explaining to the kids and just talking to them nicely and kindly,
like a kind of kindly scoutmaster.
I started crying. I mean, my propensity for tears is no secret here. I started crying and I'm punching my buddy Rob, who I took. It was me and Rob in the Ziglets.
Yeah.
And I'm punching Rob in the arm. I'm like, that's my guy. That's my guy right there.
Yeah. And it was cool because it helped set the tone for the rest of the movie.
Yeah,
it did.
And his suit was the right color blue.
So bright and pretty.
Yes. So like that, that right there is one of the big fears that we had with Zack Snyder is that Zack Snyder had been playing with these toys as the angry child who's constantly just bashing them into each other and not really caring
But in
about
like a dark
who they
room,
are. Yeah, in a dark room and a broken record's playing in the background, skipping. He doesn't even care anymore. I mean, and his dad's. I'm not going to go any further.
Wow, that started getting real.
Started going into a dark
heavy.
place.
I feel like maybe you've devoted devoted way too much thought to that metaphor.
I wish I had. This was all improv straight out of my brain at the moment.
All right.
Hey, how does this make you feel, Bryce?
Okay, well.
How do you feel about your parents, Bryce?
I love them. They're wonderful. My vivid imagination, however, is out of control. So,
anyways,
Zack Snyder has this tendency to want all of his heroes to be gritty, angry, and they're doing this because they have to, not because they want. And super flawed, and not super flawed. Flawed in a large way.
Yeah.
And when this film opens, bright blue Superman turns,
and he's
smiling, and he has that kind of moment where he's like, I know what my favorite predator is.
And the kids feel like they can approach him.
Yeah.
That's with Man of Steel. I didn't feel like a kid could go up to him and say, "Hey, Superman." You remember in the Christopher Reeve Superman when he hears the kid trying to get her cat down from the tree?
Yeah.
And he's like, "Oh, let me help you." I didn't feel like that Superman in Man of Steel would help a kid get her cat.
But what I really liked about this film, especially with the other characters as well, is that it felt like rather than Joss Whedon going, listen, here's how Superman's supposed to be, here's how Batman's supposed to be, he allowed his little moments here to turn it so you kind of felt like the characters are developing into the characters we knew as children and teenagers. Because I didn't feel like it was like suddenly, oh, by the way, your childhood hero Superman and Batman are back and here they are. It felt like, hey, these guys that you've been watching for the last couple of movies, they're figuring out that they're the kids they're your heroes from your childhood. I feel like he turned them toward that idea rather than just change them. It felt like a development.
What I felt like, they were developing, but at the same time, it was like, and you can see it with Batman, who I loved in the movie. Batfleck was great. Even him, he was very brooding in the last movie. And this one, he is too. And you could see that bringing it back to the Superman thing, Batman is starting to have hope back. And to me, that was kind of a big turning point. He's still that kind of brooding character, but there's still a glimmer of hope that's starting to turn up because of Superman. And that was kind of the driving force before his character for this movie and doing the zombie thing, which I thought was a little bit weird, but okay, I'll let it go. But it still worked itself out in the end.
The Batman of my childhood is absolutely Batman the Animated Series. And in Batman the Animated Series, no matter how dark it was, no matter how gritty the city of Gotham was, Bruce Wayne was not an asshole. He may have put on a show of being a little bit of a playboy, and that might have been a little bit of a facade. But at the end of the day, when he's talking to Alfred, Bruce Wayne is not afraid to smile.
No. And he was in Batman Superman.
He smiled in Justice League.
Yeah.
Yes,
that brief moment where he kind of goes, oh, I'm Batman.
Yeah. One of the things that I'm kind of wondering, because we see how dark and frankly douchey he is in BVS. I wonder if, when I think it was you that said he's finding hope again. Yeah. I'm wondering if that is supposed to be part of the arc for Batman in this universe, because Commissioner Gordon made the comment about how he's been doing this for 20 years, and maybe he's gone crazy this time. So clearly his working relationship with Batman is such that they've known each other for that 20 years. And so I just wish and obviously this movie was not the place to do it, but I hope at some point we get more of Batman's backstory.
Yeah, and you know what I think,
but not his origin. We already know that.
No, exactly.
But I like one of the things that Alfred said. Alfred says, it kind of makes you kind of miss the days of wind-up toy penguins.
When your biggest concern was an exploding penguin.
Yeah, that was great.
Like they throw back to, there was a time when our kind of silly Batman bad guy problem was a real thing, and it was about as bad as it got.
Yeah.
And then clearly
things got worse.
Robin has died.
Yeah.
And bad stuff has happened.
Yeah.
And they are moving forward with a sort of broken Batman, trying to put the pieces back together, because I think this was, Diana said it pretty well. You want to bring Superman back because you feel guilty, because you realize that your douchiness went too far.
Which helps explain.
She didn't say douchiness, obviously.
It was implied.
It was strongly implied.
Yeah. And like I said, I really wish they would have done a Batman film before.
We talked about how rushed this setup felt.
Oh, yeah.
The idea was that Marvel had laid its foundation and then said, okay, where are we going to go from here? Whereas DC says, okay, that's where we want to go. How can we get there as fast as possible?
Yeah.
And I feel like that is the flawed setup.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, definitely.
Well, I think think with this film, they didn't get there with a screeching, messy crash of a halt. I think they landed softly enough that they can go from here and they can build that universe.
Branch out a little bit.
And branch out in a nice, slow way that isn't
a more
tedious.
maybe a more deliberate way.
Yeah.
And they know where they want to go, because originally this was supposed to be Justice League Part 1, and there was going to be a Justice League Part 2 that were more directly tied into each other. And you can kind of tell that's what they're trying to go with this film. Maybe set up for Darkseid.
Sure.
As well as for the Legion of Doom.
Yeah.
And
or the Injustice
bigger places
League,
at the table.
Yeah. Yeah, and the more places at the table.
Which
Super excited about that. One of the things that I think is interesting, because now I'm starting to pay attention to more of what's being said about the movie now that I've seen it. I guess in its opening weekend it was expected to bring in about $96 million, and it's being called a failure, being told it's underperforming. And I'm like, I don't know, if your movie's making $96 million and that's underperforming, maybe the problem isn't the movie. Maybe the problem is your expectations.
Yeah. And I think people went into this with a huge bias after the last couple movies.
And people are right now, they're mad about Wonder Woman. And they're not mad about the first Wonder Woman. They're mad about everything that's going on with the storyline for the next Wonder Woman.
Based on all the comments that all the things that Patty had said after Patty, like we're homies, that she had said after Wonder Woman came out, I think she recognizes that she's got more leverage and she doesn't necessarily need to do things the way Zack would do them.
Yeah.
I think that it's important to have Wonder Woman portrayed consistently.
Oh, absolutely.
And I think that it's perfectly fine for Patty to say, I think this is what we're going to do.
She's the director.
She's earned that.
Oh,
absolutely. Far more than he has, in my opinion.
Yes.
And I think they're going to, obviously the movie did amazingly, so they're totally going to let her. And plus, now that Jeff Johns is in charge of the movie stuff in general, he's definitely open to that kind of stuff. And he has great ideas as well that he can ask and see if, she's down with.
Can we talk about Barry? About the Flash?
Oh, please, yes.
Before we do, just to close out that portion of the conversation as far as where the production is going, as far as where they're doing this, I would like to say that I think it's important to remember that while this movie may not have done initially as well as they had hoped, I think it is great that it is gaining traction really fast.
I agree. It's
word of mouth is spreading.
It's not.
The critics
It's not going to crash as hard as the last few movies.
I don't think it's going to crash at all. I mean, here's the deal. I'm going to buy this the first day it comes out on DVD. I still do not own Batman versus Superman.
Yeah.
Because why?
You don't need it.
Right.
I do.
I'm going to buy this the first day it comes out, just like I did with Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
I really liked the movie, and I thought it did a great job of juggling a lot of elements and keeping them straight and giving them all room to breathe.
And I think a lot of that was Joss Whedon.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I think,
especially with the lighter tone of the movie, I think he fixed up the script. I mean, I know they reshot a lot of the movie with him, and I think to give that extra lighter note. Also, I know Bryce and I talked about this. Joss Whedon knows how to characterize his characters, and that was a huge difference in this movie than anything that Zack Snyder did.
Yeah, I love that we have Aquaman as our sort of party boy jock. Batman is sort of our older, wiser, brooding guy.
Dad.
Yeah. Gal Gadot is absolutely like the heart of the team. Yeah. She's the one. She is the one. She's your reluctant leader. Superman is your mascot. And then the Flash is sort of our kid,
annoying
Spider-Man.
kid.
And
he's our Peter Parker. He's our entry level character.
Yeah.
And
then there's Cyborg.
A lot of people complained that they needed more Cyborg in the movie, and I would have liked it, but I thought it was still pretty good.
I didn't think it needed necessarily more of him, but I do appreciate the balance he provided because he was their like linchpin. He was so important to the whole thing, as important as like I love that you didn't have Superman coming in and be like, well, I'm Superman, and now the problem is solved because I showed up.
Yeah,
it was Superman and the Flash. We'll go take care of this.
Yeah,
we'll go take care of the civilians,
and then Superman and Cyborg will pull the boxes.
It was definitely a teamwork kind of thing.
Yeah,
right.
And they made him less, like, even though he is super powerful, they made it to make sure that you go, okay, he can't be everywhere at once, which means everyone else has to pull their weight. if Superman can't be there. And they went in thinking he wouldn't show up.
And Cyborg was the only one who doesn't want to be there.
Yeah.
Doesn't want to be in this battle.
Doesn't want his
powers. To me, he epitomizes the idea of the reluctant hero.
Oh, definitely.
I don't want to be here. I'm a monster. Leave me alone. And
He's very Hulk.
Yeah, in a lot of ways.
But he's intellectual, obviously.
Right. But yeah, in that sense that just like Bruce doesn't want to be burdened with the Hulk, Cyborg doesn't want to be burdened.
Banner, by the way.
Yeah, took me a quick second.
With his Cyborg doesn't want to be burdened with his situation either.
Right.
He should have died.
Yeah.
And he
has survivor's guilt for sure.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Particularly since the other person who died in that accident was his mom.
Yeah.
Whose name was Martha.
Was it really?
No.
Be like, shut up. Because I wouldn't be surprised.
Someone needs to get a hold of the writing department over there. There are other moms than Martha.
Yes, I know.
But if it was, all he would have do is tell Steppenwolf, "Hey, Steppenwolf, my mom's name's Martha." And Steppenwolf would have been like, "What? My mom's name is Martha."
Right.
Did we just become best friends?
Yup.
Karate in the garage.
Okay, so let's talk about
real quick, one more point.
Okay.
I liked Cyborg well enough. I still like him better as a Teen Titan. That's all. That's all I had to say.
Okay, so let's go bit by bit real quick. Barry Allen.
Yeah.
Okay, so I've just started watching the TV series The Flash.
Oh, yeah.
Because the Ziglets are watching it. I really like the TV series. Mm-hmm. I also really liked what they did with Barry here.
Yeah.
Because, it's the same character, but
It's played totally different.
And I think part of that is because clearly on the TV show, Barry has a support structure after Dad goes to jail.
Right.
That I don't think Barry in the films ever had.
No, and he makes that comment about, I don't really have friends.
Right.
What is brunch?
Yeah, exactly. So
that's a Joss Whedon.
That whole scene was Joss Whedon.
Yes, absolutely.
I didn't love it as much as everybody else did. I think it got too funny sometimes, too goofy for what the general tone of the film was.
But given that Barry clearly doesn't interact with people,
it totally made sense for his character.
Yes.
And it was cool. That's what I was like, I'm kind of torn with it.
It was cool to see somebody who doesn't interact with people because he's bad at it versus somebody who doesn't interact with people because he's tired of it. Because Bruce Wayne versus the two recluses having to have a conversation.
So what's your superpower? I'm rich.
You're like, damn it, he's good.
Yeah, that's right. But yeah, so I really liked the fact that they didn't just cut and paste Grant Gustin's interpretation of the Flash from the TV show into Ezra Miller's performance in the film. And the other places that we've seen Ezra Miller as the Flash in like Batman versus Superman and in Suicide Squad, we didn't really get a sense of that aspect of his character.
A little in Suicide Squad, I think we had a moment of
quick little joke.
I think this guy might be kind of funny.
Yeah.
Well, I think Suicide Squad has to happen after this film from a chronological standpoint because, Barry is a more established character.
Yeah.
He clearly seems more confident in his powers and in how he uses them.
Yeah, and he even mentioned it in this movie that he's not a fighter. He's like, I've never actually been in a fight. I just push people out of the way.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So there's that. And I'm okay with that. I don't really care.
I think it's cool that he's sort of a pacifist in that regard. That he's not, he's not in there to go punch people. He's in there to throw them off of the cliffs
and I think part of that is that he does not... That's not something that's crossed his path yet.
Right.
Yeah.
Makes sense. The nightmare sequence from Batman versus Superman, clearly he's been doing this for a long time. I don't know how they're going to tie all that shit together. Maybe they will. Maybe they won't. I don't really care. I'm curious about how they'll do it.
So maybe they'll probably just change it and be like, Yoda.
We fixed it.
Yeah.
But I really liked the way Barry was portrayed. Interesting note for me, I didn't realize this. Maybe you guys did. Did you recognize Ezra Miller? You know where else we've seen him recently?
Where?
Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them.
Oh, I didn't
He's
see
the kid that Grindelwald or whatever his name is.
Grindelwald.
Johnny Depp?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's just Johnny Depp, right?
No, he's not Johnny.
He's Johnny Depp.
But... Captain Jack.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Captain Jack Hatter.
Right. But he's the other kid that
I haven't seen the film yet, so
Oh, I've only seen it once in the theater. And it was,
anyway, he's in there, and he's going to be in the next one.
right?
So.
Yeah.
that's cool. So okay, so then we talked about Cyborg. We talked about him. Now we're back to our standard trio that we already had. We've got. Wait, am I missing somebody?
We didn't really
Cyborg?
talk about Aquaman.
Oh, Aquaman. Yes,
I dug him.
I really did too.
He was also kind of reluctant. I mean, he knew he had his powers, obviously, and he used his powers, but he didn't want to use it for his own people.
Well, remember, his people, the Atlanteans, I assume that's what you mean by his people, abandoned him. And he doesn't really know anything else beyond that.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I liked that he was more than happy to help out the people in this village.
Yeah.
But he wasn't really interested in getting involved in anything larger scale than that.
Yeah, he's like, I like being this Icelandic village's Superman. That's good enough.
Yeah. I will say there was one thing in that sequence. My impression of Bruce Wayne, Batman, whatever, is that he's, in terms of intellect and preparedness, he is on a par or maybe a step behind Lex Luthor.
Okay.
So why didn't Bruce just drop some Icelandic in there and say, but you're the guy I want, right? You know, when someone was translating to the village elder or whatever.
That would have been.
It didn't. Yeah, it felt weird that Bruce was suddenly the dumbest guy in the room.
Yeah.
Because he kind of gives this sort of like, what's going on kind of look. Yeah. And when that happened, it was like, you don't have any idea what they're saying at all. And I mean, it was off-putting for like a microsecond for me because he figured out very quickly through other means. And I was like, okay, cool. At least
Clearly, I remembered it or recognized it.
Yeah.
It didn't bug me that much because I think I was more intrigued with the writings on the wall, like the literal drawings
on the wall.
Yeah. Because I love that shit. I mean, I love looking at all that background kind of stuff.
Yeah.
See what I can recognize.
Yeah.
I like that they talked about Aquaman's back to Aquaman. I like they talked about that Aquaman doesn't actually speak to fish.
Yeah.
Because I don't speak to fish, I speak to the water. And the water, is kind of our communicating liaison.
Yeah.
And I loved how quickly and subtly they were able to go, and he goes in the water and he's off. And he's out, and he's done. And the fight underwater, Brian is fully aware that pretty much anything that happens underwater in any comic book universe for me, I'm immediately ready to check out because it's almost never done in an exciting way. I'm looking at you, Marvel Ultimate Alliance, every water level.
The one you've been stuck on for like 3 years?
Yes.
Because you never play it, but that's the thing. No, we finished it up, though. We finally finished
it up. And you know what else? Captain America and the Avengers for the Super Nintendo, worst level, water level. Anytime we go underwater in comic books, it just gets Star Wars, Knights of the Old Republic, most boring portion of the game, underwater level. Like, underwater doesn't mean exciting for me. But in this, that battle goes down. Cool. And I'm like, I haven't been this excited to be in the ocean since Sebastian talked about how the seaweed is always greener in somebody else's lake. It was a good time. And that fight was awesome. And seeing Steppenwolf is strong even down there in that pressure was really cool.
Yeah.
And then their brief, like, we can't talk underwater, but we can make this bubble for us to have a brief conversation.
Really
cool. That was a good use of Mira's
It made
powers.
me very quickly respect the Atlanteans a lot further. Although Wonder Woman's flashback, where she kind of talked about, like, the Atlanteans showed up, everybody else showed up. It was
with her explaining Steppenwolf.
Let's talk about that.
We'll get that in a moment.
We'll get there, yeah.
But it was cool that we very much established Atlanteans are badass.
And
they are equivalent to the Amazons. And I like that we kind of hinted that they were kind of exiled to the underwater, that they weren't necessarily entirely an underwater race the entire time.
The impression that I had was that whatever happened to sink Atlantis happened after the big battle with against Steppenwolf.
Yeah.
It's like one of those really awesome, respectable races in Lord of the Rings where, the Atlanteans are like, I guess they're kind of like the Rangers, and the others are kind of like the Forest Elves. The Amazons are kind of like the Forest Elves, although they're more rangery. But they're not dwarves by any means, but they're badass. They're badass, and they're well beyond the scope of humanity. And I think the brief moments into Atlantis that we saw, as well as what we saw of Aquaman,
I'm certainly looking forward to the Aquaman movie.
I certainly am now.
Yeah.
I'm sold.
Yeah.
And Momoa, I mean, I haven't heard Momoa speak since Stargate Atlantis, funny enough.
Does he not talk in Game of Thrones?
I mean, I've heard him speak but he only speaks Dothraki. He speaks
Like
the
the
horse lord
entire-
language.
yeah.
So, like, Klingon.
Yeah, basically.
He says crown for a king, and like that's it.
That's it, yeah. And then he dumps the gold, and
It was awesome.
so good.
But Momoa's a badass.
Right.
He's clearly a badass here. His blue eyes were a little jarring for me, knowing what he already looks like before, but like not to a point where I didn't accept it very quickly. I dug it. I totally dug him. Was there anything else about him that was really exciting and thrilling for you guys now that I've gushed all my love for Aquaman?
Not that I can. I mean, he seemed to get along really well with the rest of the team, even though he was like, okay, this is kind of bullshit, but I'm down. Whatever.
I like that he kind of glommed onto Batman.
Yeah.
Like that was his guy.
Yeah.
You know,
Especially him running around on the Batmobile.
I liked his distrust of Cyborg also.
Yes.
And I like that they didn't overstate it and make it a huge conflict within the party.
Right.
You know?
I would like to see a Batman Aquaman team up.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
Not like a full movie.
Yeah, give me a 15-minute one shot.
Yeah. That's what I want.
Yeah.
Even if, you know, part of that is like Aquaman over at the Batcave for dinner and Alfred draws up with some cedar plank.
Oh, yeah.
You know, salmon. And he's like, what? And Bruce is like, oh, sorry, man.
Unless he's down to eat the salmon. Unless they showed it like, oh, what do we do? He's like, oh, looks so good.
I love salmon.
Yeah.
Just salmon's the best.
Yeah. And you're like, oh, thank God.
I like that they didn't make a big deal about him getting the trident. Or
Yeah, because it kind of just appeared.
There's just one. Well, he says there's one thing. I want one thing from you.
Yeah.
To Mira.
Oh,
that's
right.
very
one
quick.
thing.
And he said that, I'm like, I know what he's getting.
I didn't know. So it was cool that it showed up. I'm like, oh, that's badass.
Well, I had a different thought, but that's just because I'm a filthy human being.
Right.
That's fair. Okay, so then
Woman.
When we have Wonder Woman, when she showed up, I think I even like hit Brian a little
he
bit.
did.
I was like, the theme is playing. I love her.
Yeah.
Her theme did not play nearly as much in the film as I wanted.
Which I was okay with because I'm not the biggest fan. I like it. Yeah, I don't know.
I love the fact that she is shown to be, in terms of strength, almost as strong as Superman.
Yeah.
Because that's how she should be.
Yeah, and I don't think she's ever really. They never really pushed that as much as they should in other.
There's up until this film, she doesn't really have a reason to use her full strength.
Yeah.
And I think maybe in the heat of the moment, she kind of forgets. I can't remember if it was where I've seen this, but there's the idea that Superman is like holding back so much all the time.
All the time.
You know, and so I think kind of Diana has to function with that to a certain degree, you know, in terms of her strength, so she doesn't like decapitate someone when she punches them. So I can see in the moment just kind of, you know, here's the guy that we're trying to save, that we're trying to bring back, and he is gone a little crazy, and now what do we do?
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I like when she got angry at Bruce and he made that reference to
Steve Trevor,
and she like shoves him real quick and he flies.
He
Like,
flies,
He
and he's
went
like,
back and he's like, oh, and he,
shit.
you know, she knew that was too far, but she's so mad at that point. You're like, oh man, and you know she's still holding back.
and she's like, I'm not going to apologize for that shit.
Yeah, but when
But even Batman was like, okay, yeah, that was a little too far.
yeah, but when she shows up in the bank when he's gonna
at the
bomb the
beginning,
city block or whatever, I thought that was
such
a
a
great
cool
like
sequence.
when she's suddenly really fast, just like boom, boom, breaking every single bullet as it's coming at her. When that was happening, I was like, I never realized how
that fast.
fast she must be.
The speed of Hermes.
Yeah, and that's not something, you know, we didn't have to have a big conversation about it, but. In this film, I think we really pushed all of the Amazons as fast because we saw that they were great warriors in that storming of the beach scene in Wonder Woman. But when we watched the greatest game of keep away ever, with Steppenwolf showing up and they're like, sorry girls, you gotta die. And they're like, okay, that's the deal, queen.
But there was never any question for any of them. One of the things that I love about how DC, not only in the film, but in the comics, portrays the Amazons, it's very similar to the samurai. There's and I have this quote in one of my lectures at school.
Yeah.
But basically it's the idea that, hey, if you have to choose between life and death, choose death every time. Because once you've made that decision, there's no question about how anything else plays out.
Oh.
You know, and that's
what they did.
That's what they do. That's how the Amazons function day to day. We got to die. All right. It's
let's
great
do
or
this.
good. We're going to take care of it.
And that's goes to another aspect of the DC universe that I'm really appreciating right now. now that Steppenwolf, legitimate bad guy, showed up, started killing people.
Yep.
And Amazons were dying. And I liked that, like, he breaks out of that temple. And my immediate thought was, oh my gosh, some of these Amazons are going to live. And I was happy because I was worried for them because they could die.
Yeah.
And that's my big problem. I'm not shy about it. My big problem with Marvel is that their bad guys aren't serious threats because they're too nice to humans.
Right.
Steppenwolf shows up, bug people show up, people are dying.
One of the scenes that I really liked with Steppenwolf was when he's kidnapped all those dudes from Star
He straight up
Labs.
snaps that woman's
Well,
neck and drops.
and the janitor's like, please, I have a family. And Steppenwolf's like, why does everyone tell me that?
Yeah.
Like, I don't care.
Yeah.
It's like, tell me what I want to know. Or
Next.
look at the next one. Look at those last ones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
And one of the things that I really liked about the Amazon fight that eventually happens is that, he shows up, starts killing Amazons left and right. They're fighting a good fight.
yeah, they're not red shirts from Star Trek
No.
where
And
they
it's
just
not-
show up and just
And it's not the Thor Ragnarok stuff with Hela where she just kills him right then and there without even.
Yeah, like the Warriors.
the
3
Amazons are actual fighters.
Yeah, legit warriors, and
they're going after
They're going after it, and they're willing to die for it, and they're fighting in a really awesome team dynamic. And that point at which it was like, and onto the horse, and she's off the horse, and now she's shooting the box via arrow to the next person.
That whole sequence.
You don't need to
so
see
awesome.
And you've established so many things. One, this is a legitimate threat. Two, this box is really important. They lock him in and they go, move it. Get that box
get it
going.
out of here.
Because we know he's coming back out. There's like they both simultaneously go, this is one of the greatest fighting forces on Earth.
In the history of Earth.
In the history of Earth, and this bad guy over here can kick their ass. And you suddenly you can both show both strengths in one fight, and no one looks weak.
You know what question I had? If they knew he was going to be getting out of the temple sooner rather than later, where were they going to go? I mean, eventually they're going to run out of island.
See, and I thought they were gonna try to send it off the island somewhere.
Get it onto a ship.
Yeah.
Although Diana said she's the only one who can leave.
My impression was that she's no, because remember in
She's the one
Wonder
who
Woman,
has left.
she's the only one who has left, and she can't go back because she's left.
Oh, okay.
Was it?
But she can't find it.
I don't know if it's that she can't find it or that once you leave, you're not allowed back on.
Maybe some sort of magic or something.
Yeah, Either way, where were they going to send it?
Since we're talking about Wonder Woman and the Amazons, let's talk about that battle sequence, not the flashback.
Flashback battle sequence.
Yeah, because
Green Lantern was showing up.
DC did so much world building there.
Oh, they did.
Let's talk about the Green Lantern.
Yeah.
Clearly, first of all, that was so badass.
And they gave him a lot of time.
They did.
Yeah.
The ring flying off and going, oh, gotta find somebody.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I was hoping that we would see them find someone on the battlefield, just because I think that would have been
That would've
fucking
been real
awesome.
cool.
But it's okay that it zooms off because that tells us a lot about Green Lanterns. Because let's face it, most people are not going to remember the Ryan Reynolds film.
Yeah.
I mean, even Ryan Reynolds knows that it's a stinker.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he talks about it all the time in Deadpool.
Yeah.
So,
But
But that
the
whole
Green Lantern
scene-
sequence, the gods.
yes,
being
including Ares,
Including Ares.
Yeah.
which I thought was super cool.
And it was cool because, again, they mentioned the gods too, and so they had a kind of a little throwback to Suicide Squad with the gods that were in
Enchantress.
that movie, Enchantress.
Yes.
But didn't give enough screen time kind of thing. They
Yeah,
just mentioned
well-
it and then moved on.
And here's so the Native American god that was in that
right.
in that sequence,
So badass.
totally. And I wonder if that was Nappy, because here's the deal. I don't know if we talked about this previously. Okay, so in Wonder Woman never shakes hands with anybody. Right?
Okay. Yeah.
Because she just kind of when they extend their hand, she's like,
What does that mean?
what?
Yeah.
But when he extends it, he takes off his glove and offers her his hand, and she shakes his hand. I think she asks him like, "What's your name?" And he says, "I'm Nappy," and that's a Native American god. And so I like that has been confirmed by both Patty and the actor.
That's
so
super cool.
that's
So maybe
really
in
cool.
that battle we get another one.
Yeah, so I think we get that in there as well. And I just like the idea of building the world beyond, because in fiction, we always get the Greeks and Romans.
Right.
We always get Zeus and Ares and Hera and all that. And that's cool and all. And now as Thor is becoming more popular, we're starting to see more of the Asgardian gods in pop culture and stuff like that. But there are tons of pantheons out there.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
I thought that was super cool.
Yeah, so I would love to see the DCU expand that aspect of itself.
Yeah. And I think it's really cool that while Diana was not there, Wonder Woman is kind of our connection to this much broader world and universe that really Kal-El, Clark Kent, Superman can't give us because he is unaware of that time.
Right.
Whereas she has been taught the history of what has happened specifically on Earth. You know, he might have a whole slew of access to the histories of Krypton, but
some of the planets around Krypton, but Earth wasn't around.
yeah, if Kryptonians weren't involved, it's not really his area.
Right.
And until we have Green Lantern, we really don't have access to the greater cosmos of the DCEU.
Yeah. Although with Cyborg interacting with the box is, he now has a lot of stuff that he has to go through. And even mentioned too, like, it's too much. Like, there's a lot going on. I'm having trouble processing. Once he does, that could unlock some really cool stuff.
Yeah,
down the line.
once he gets Cyborg iOS 11.4.
Yeah, right. He's on like 1.5.
Every time he says the word "I," he goes, "A question box." So that brings us to Batman.
Oh yeah,
this was my Batman. My action figures came to the screen finally.
Definitely more recognizable as Batman than he was in BVS.
Oh yeah.
Even
his suit was just more Batman-like to me.
I'm a comic book guy first.
Yeah.
And so for me, growing up, the gray suit, yellow oval, blue cowl and cape, that's my Batman costume. So the gray head to toe, blah, blah, blah. It's okay. I know it's Batman, blah, blah.
It'd be nice to see older colored versions in his cave.
Yeah, or something. I don't know. But having said that, I did like this costume.
Yeah. And there's two major parts about Batman that I loved. Number one was my favorite scene in the whole movie when the fear soldiers, bug soldiers,
parademons.
The parademons, thank you. When the parademons are coming in and we're seeing everyone fight and we're seeing Batman truly the tactical fighter and not just really good hand-to-hand combat, but he's like, and I'm gonna bring you down with a cable, throw on a bomb, shove you off.
But we figured out that he's not the strong guy on the team physically. He tried fighting him hand-to-hand and it wasn't working that way because they're
at the beginning, sequence at the beginning.
And so he had to change his tactics, and he did. That's totally Batman.
So there was that, and he, in Nolan's Batman, he might be an expert fighter, but we only get hand-to-hand combat and stealth moves. Or the tumbler and the bike do all the rest of the fighting.
With Nolan's Batman, we're getting brand new Batman.
We are.
Yeah.
Here, we've got 20 years in the game Batman.
True.
Yeah.
Very true.
I'm still irritated that,
we didn't see a lot of it.
that 20 years in and urban legend, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Sure.
But
they didn't.
The cops don't seem to think that way. They all know. So
Gordon clearly knows the score. And I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that, Commissioner Gordon and all that, this all leads me to my second point that I love is that Batman showed up and we heard bum 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 really subtly hidden into the score, but the Danny
music,
Elfman
that's going to be
animated
we'll talk about music a little bit later, but
was there and we'll get into that in a minute. But I felt like the Batman in my action figures, the toys I played with when I was a kid, the cartoons I watched, the comics I read, the movies I watched were finally
all
back.
One.
Because I love The Dark Knight. I can watch it plenty of times. I think Heath Ledger's Joker is fantastic. It is a great homage to my Batman. It is not my Batman.
Gotcha. Okay,
and
fair.
This, I felt like I haven't seen my Batman since really Batman Returns. Aside from the animated series, but in live action, forever, no, and certainly not and Robin.
Yeah.
And I don't know, the goddamn Batman idea, this, gritty, Batman and I hate everybody. Okay, that's supposed to be a phase. We're supposed to move out of it. We're supposed to be, I want Kevin Conroy.
Yeah.
And I feel like I got Kevin Conroy in human form here.
Kevin Conroy is human.
I feel like I got Kevin Conroy in live action form here.
Okay. All right. There we go.
Is he human, though? He's pretty amazing.
Yeah, he is.
This is true.
Yeah. Love Batman, the suit, the music, the
way he interacts with the rest of the team.
At first, I thought he was going to be a little bit too jokey with Joss Whedon coming in.
I was really worried about that. I didn't bring a sword.
Yeah. A couple of the jokes were a little bit off to me, but for the most part, like
I loved when he was talking shit to Aquaman.
oh, that was great.
You brought a pitchfork.
Yeah, it was great, and then
There's definitely something bleeding here.
yeah, that was great.
That was such a great line.
Yeah, and I felt like it really took the character to a different level. Like he's finally coming out of that gritty, pissed off old man. Again, come back to that hope is coming back.
Yeah,
and
I like that they established that he really is only human. We didn't see his whole back, but when he lifted up his suit just a little bit after the Superman fight,
Yeah.
and you're like, dude, Batman almost died.
Yeah.
Like, do you bleed? I mean, as much as I didn't necessarily need a throwback to BVS, that was a great throwback to BVS.
Yeah.
Which
story.
I guess brings us right up to the man himself, Superman.
Dave, take the wheel.
This was everything I had hoped for from a film Superman since Christopher Reeve. It was. Did I talk about the cats? The cat in the tree?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
I couldn't tell if that. I couldn't remember if that was before we started recording or not.
Yeah, no, that was.
I mean,
From the get-go, though.
yes, he is from the very beginning. When the interview with the kids to we get the moments with Lois and
the mom.
when Ma shows up.
Yeah.
I'm gonna lie, I cried at that too. I mean, as a parent, when you worry about your kids, I can't even imagine losing one of the Ziglets that way.
Right.
And then to have to deal with that fear and that pain and that loss as a parent, but then to get it, be like, oh my God, you're back.
You're back.
Oh, I was a
Holy
mess.
shit, yeah.
I didn't cry at that point, but like when she gets out of the car and she sees him in the cornfield, I'm like,
Yeah. Yeah.
I wish that I had known whether or not she came back to the house knowing he was there or not.
Lois called her.
Right, but did she say, come back to the house, I got a surprise for you? Or did she say, I need you to come back to the house?
I feel like
By the way, your son's
I
alive?
feel like Ma had to know.
I mean, if she's birthright Ma, she does know because she's all over the internet.
I feel like that would have been all over the TV.
Yeah.
And this brings me to the one tiny, infinitesimal problem I have with that sequence. Secret identity much?
Yeah, me too. And there's a bunch of people around, and the cops were there.
He didn't have his glasses on. It's fine.
But he flew off with Lois Lane.
Yeah.
He did fly off with Lois Lane.
Oh.
Wearing Clark Kent's pants.
I mean,
Yeah.
I have those pants. I have Clark Kent's pants.
Oh, that's weird.
Does Clark know you have his pants?
It's really.
God, I hope not. I saw how mad he was at Batman. I'm gonna need those back, son. Yeah, I mean, the secret identity thing, I feel like was really not cared about. Like Bruce Wayne shows up and is like, "Hey, by the way, I'm Bruce Wayne. I've been hiding my identity for 20 years, but here's a Flash. Whatever. Hope you're a good guy."
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was something that I kind of wondered. I mean, because in the comics, it took a while for the League to get to the point where they're like, yeah, okay, by the way, here's my secret identity.
Right.
Yeah.
And although I like the way they did it in Justice League Unlimited, where Flash is like, so should we show each other, all right, how are we going to deal with our secret identities? Because there's an episode where they all lose their powers.
Oh.
And Flash is like, so I guess we're going to have to show each other our secret identities, right? And Batman's like, Wally West, Diana Prince, Clark Kent, John Stewart, and I'm Bruce Wayne. And Wally's like, okay then.
That's awesome.
So there's that. That would have been fun,
But at the same time, this goes back to what you really liked about Batman versus Superman in regards to let's get the Lois Lane and Clark Kent are in love out of the way.
Yes.
Let's not
And that
worry
she
about the
knows the
secret
identity.
identity.
Yes.
It's an old, long, exhausted trope.
Sure. And with, does Lois know, does she not know? But with all of Metropolis and the whole world knowing, that's kind of a different animal.
Yeah, and I don't think my big fear as soon as he showed up is I'm like, well, he's gonna have to wait a while before Clark Kent magically comes back to work.
Yeah. See, and that was another thing too. It's like, okay, Superman's back, great. Hey, what's Clark Kent doing back? Because he also died.
That's weird.
Why?
This is just like that time that Batman went missing for 7 years at the same time Bruce Wayne did.
But also bringing it back further, it's like, how are they going to explain Clark Kent coming back to life, who's a human,
Right.
and has been dead for...
Right. At that point, it's, hey, he survived. He's been an amnesiac. And he doesn't remember any of this.
But it's like... Then
With an evil twin.
Oh, see, boom, we're done. Explains everything.
Dun.
Yeah.
Okay, so back on Superman.
Superman's great.
Superman, I mean, again, with that first opening vertical video.
Yeah.
Nice touch doing vertical video because kids aren't that great at that sort of thing. They don't care.
Yes.
You know, the and we have a question for our podcast. Like, little kids, I felt like it was wonderful.
Yeah.
I was like, hey, we have a podcast.
Yeah.
We're children.
They said that we started busting up.
Yeah. But, you know, and he turns and then that...
And I love that he didn't ask, what's a podcast? So he's at least with it enough to know what a podcast is.
But then his interaction with everybody when he shows back up, and then that leads back to that whole is Superman overpowered conversation that, you know, Brian and I had for a long time, up until I read Birthright. Seriously, you've got to read Birthright, Brian. Up until I read Birthright, I was always on up from about the point I was a teenager, I was on the team of Superman has way too many powers. He's way too powerful. There's no real conflict because he'll always get out of it. And this really demonstrates that he can't be everywhere at once. He can't just zip, 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 zip. Yes, he can lift a building and set down the civilians. Yes, he can help. But even he was struggling to pull apart the boxes with Cyborg.
Yeah.
He was struggling with how to get to
All the civilians
other
that were around.
civilians. You know, he's not
Perfect.
And it made me appreciate him a lot more. Because again, like, I was never a big fan. I'm still kind of not, but I'm coming around.
Yeah, I by the end of this, I was like, man, Superman's so cool, and I haven't felt that way since the Superman cartoon, really. Yeah. I mean, or you know, the original films. I mean, he and Richard Pryor have some great chemistry.
I'm going to reach across this table and strangle you if you ever say that again.
Okay, well, that leads me to the last big chunk of this that I really want to talk about as far as the review of the movie. Superman was blue. His suit was blue. His S was red. The coloring of this film was magnificent.
Yes.
So much better.
Many of the shots look like they came straight out of Alex Ross paintings. You know they were mimicking those light setups. The point where the three of them are standing, they've got that top light.
Yeah.
You know, the poster is a clear homage to the Alex Ross Justice League poster.
Yep.
There were so many points where it was colorful, which, you know, with Marvel movies seeming to be left in the log setting or filmed on RAW, and BVS being way muted,
And Man of Steel.
and Man of Steel being way muted. I watched that video that you recommended, the colorized. It's a short film. It's a short.
It just shows a couple of clips.
But man,
It makes
Huge difference. Huge difference.
they listened though. I think that's wonderful.
Yeah, and it was... I thought maybe the best we could hope for would be kind of like what they did with Wonder Woman, where Wonder Woman is bright, you know, against the muck and the mire and the gray of No Man's Land.
And No Man's Land should be gray.
As it should be.
Totally.
Yes. As it should be. But I figured that would be the best we could hope for out of this film. And I was so excited that the colors...
We could see
done
colors.
Right.
Yeah. And he explains the S to the kids, and it's bright. You know, he turns and he's like, "Hey, audience, check it out! I have a big red S, and it's actually red, and it means something to me, and it's special."
Just thinking about it.
Oh, yeah.
And the kids are like, "Oh, that's so cool!" And like, he's just a big older brother kind of guy. He's like,
Yeah.
I'll don't worry, kid. You know.
Here's what I want to know. When the kids ask, what's your favorite thing about Earth?
Oh, yeah.
And it gets cut off.
Yeah.
What do you think he was going to say?
I was thinking of Lois.
He can't say that.
Well, no, obviously, I don't think he was gonna. I don't think he had something to say.
But, well, I think he did. I think that
Because it almost like he almost did say something.
Yeah, I think that if he was going to say anything, it would be the people.
Yeah, if he was going to say
Because-
something to them.
Because one of the things that Superman, I think, one of the things that kind of makes him do what he does, yes, there's you have this power, so you need to do good with it, but also to inspire other people to be good, to be their best selves.
Yeah.
You know, that's always one of the things that I take from Birthright when I read it.
Oh yeah.
You know, and I read it every year because I teach it in my heroes class.
right.
Yep.
And that's one of the things we talk about.
And if he's absent during any of those, I read it every year. I have read Birthright to his class a couple of times.
That's awesome.
That first chapter kills me every year.
Yeah. Shout out Mark Waid.
Mark Waid and Lenny Liu. Man, that is magnificent comic work.
It's so good.
Yes.
Oh, I'm in.
Oh, it's so good.
Yeah.
But Superman, I think, back on your question, what was he going to say? When I saw his face, I thought to myself, like, he's thinking of the people like he really loves. But if he had to turn and he was going to say something, I think he would have said something like, it's you guys.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know? No, I'm getting choked up.
See, and like that's the Superman that we needed and wanted.
Yeah, and that's
That's why I like the first Captain America movie as much as I do, because
He's all about
he's
that.
the kid,
Yeah.
you know. And Superman may be really experienced with his powers now, and he may be, Superman snaps Zod's neck and then loses his mind, because he's just like, oh my god, I just killed somebody. This is not what I signed up.
Not only that, but he killed his own people.
And he killed his
And now
own
he's-
people. That's a guy who doesn't want to be in that position. And I like that it was motivated. And I think when he goes up, he's like, no more of that. I don't want to deal with that again.
Yep.
We got to find another way if we can in these situations.
Yes.
And I think I think he would have turned to the kids and said, "It's you guys." Like, Brian, what do you think?
No, that was pretty much it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm with you, fellas.
Definitely. Yeah.
Oh, what they say. Speaking of doing things that seem mildly out of character, when Batman starts busting out guns and like just taking out the parademons and stuff,
I was okay with it.
I don't want. If he had done something else, he would have been an idiot.
Yeah.
Well, and
You have no choice.
yeah, and the thing that, and I made this point last time, I don't have a problem with him having guns on the plane or on the car, because what else are you supposed to do?
Yeah.
It's to me, using guns in the on the plane and on the car are a different animal from pulling a
straight
gun,
up shotgun.
straight up a pistol out of your utility belt and blowing the Joker's face off, even though I think he should.
Right.
But that's a different issue. That's a different podcast. But when you're driving the car, when you're flying the plane, what else are you going to do?
Yeah. Which, back on that also, when he's talking about loading up that siren sound, I really dug that. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but he said, we need to load this up on the Batmobile.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, on the Batmobile
And
speakers.
he said Batmobile, and I was like, yeah, that's right. Tumblr, get that shit out of here. Call it the Batmobile.
Yeah.
Be a little kitschy if you can.
Actually, and going back to that whole thing, I really liked how even now they're still interested in upgrading the armor and making it more efficient and better for the fight that's gonna happen.
He's a tactician.
Yeah.
Well, and he's got to be aware of his own mortality at this point.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
20 years in.
Yeah, and having lost at least one Robin.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
I mean, story-wise, where do you think they're going? You think they're going to go right into Darkseid, or you think they want to do Doom first?
I think they are going to go into Legion of Doom / Injustice League, whatever. I think Darkseid has to be the end game.
Right.
Because if you do Darkseid, another world-threatening menace, and then you do Legion of Doom...
It loses its impact, its punch. You're like, wait, really? Did you not just see the guy that we fought? Come on.
I liked that Lex seemed a little bit more like Lex in his brief moment.
Yes.
He seemed like he was like, okay, I'm gonna stop being this goofy guy. I'm pissed now.
Yeah, he did not irritate the fuck out of me like he did.
Yeah.
And
Of course, I only had to deal with him for 10
Deathstroke.
seconds. But
Deathstroke. I saw that sword on the back with the flap, and I'm like, oh, Slade is here.
Well, and when he took off the helmet, I was like, holy balls.
Yeah,
that's fucking Slade Wilson.
That's
the way I've always known.
Oh,
him.
yeah.
Yeah.
And the actor playing him, Joe...
Manganiello.
Yes, he changed his look big time, and he looks fucking awesome.
Yeah. So cool.
Yeah.
And just the two of them on the yacht or whatever. I thought that was rad.
Yeah.
I love the race.
I was going to say that. I love the
That
race.
was a great ending to the just...
I would not have minded if during the credit sequence we showed up periodically to see them racing throughout America.
Yes.
I would have liked the little holiday road.
That would have been funny. But yeah, I
And totally Joss Whedon status.
Yeah. But it was, the brunch idea.
Oh, that was
without doing a full shawarma.
Yeah.
Less is more, and it's not. I feel like I feel Joss Whedon and Zack Snyder kind of need to be reined in once in a while.
But I felt like the shawarma scene was appropriate at the end of the Avengers, and I felt like the brunch reference, the callback, was equally appropriate.
It was great.
For this. So,
I just
plus Superman wasn't there. He's like, what's up with this brunch thing?
Yeah, Batman said if I win, you're buying us all brunch.
Yeah.
He's like, I view that as a betrayal. So
it was. I loved how they all worked together. I loved that we're going in the direction of something.
Yeah.
Lighter, but still heavy.
But yeah, the
lighter, but still potentially world-ending.
Yeah,
and I like that
which
it's
is
not
a weird
world-ending
thing
like
to say.
Collateral damage. It's legitimate. Like hell on Earth.
Yeah, literal.
Yeah.
When Ultron's gonna destroy the Earth, you're blowing up humanity. You're real original there, Mr. Robot. But when this guy's going to pave the way for a new planet with this nasty terraforming thing that's forming, that's cool, man.
Yeah,
that's
pretty gnarly.
That's gnarly. It's scary.
And I thought the way they finally defeated him by instilling enough fear in him.
Yeah, that his own minions.
I also like that Superman used his cold breath. I was like, yeah, that's right. Superman can do cool stuff sometimes. It's not laser eyes and punching people.
Especially when they broke the sword. Or the axe.
The axe when she cuts through that with it. I like that I like that she sharpened it. She is a warrior. She takes care of her weapons.
Yeah.
These were such little subtle things throughout the film.
Thanks, Joss Whedon.
Yes. Well, and I think Zack Snyder's kind of in a real tough position right now because some of this may have been Zack Snyder. He may have, I don't want to give that guy too much credit, but it's possible that some of these ideas came from his head. And we're giving all the good shit to Joss Whedon because we can't fathom the idea that Zack Snyder got his shit together.
Because
that's fair.
Yeah, because we've got Man of Steel and BVS, and I guess he's like the creative overseer on Suicide Squad. Mm-hmm. But he's had ample opportunity to show us that he can do subtle, and that every opportunity he has allowed that pitch to go right over the plate and into the catcher's mitt.
Yeah. Well, and that was one of the things that Brian said right after we got out of the film too. He said, I'd really love to see the Zack Snyder cut so I can know what it was that he actually contributed to this.
I have to admit, I am curious about that too. More like a morbid curiosity.
Yeah, that's a morbid curiosity for sure. I don't.
Whereas when you were talking about the 3-hour Joss Whedon Avengers 2 cut, that I'm just really curious to see.
Right.
Because I really enjoyed Avengers 2.
Yeah. I had a lot of fun with it, but it many of the problems that I felt existed in BVS regarding convoluted storylines, things being introduced that didn't necessarily need to be introduced, I think existed a little bit in the Age of Ultron story regarding everything surrounding Thor.
We'll have to do a podcast about that because I'm curious, and now is not the time for that.
Certainly. So, what's next for the DC universe?
So, last I heard is they were doing some pre-production on Flash and Aquaman, but they weren't going full steam ahead until they figured out how well Justice League went.
Because I was under the impression... Sorry, I didn't mean it.
It's like because the last few movies bombed, money-wise, but except for Wonder Woman. So that kind of helped. Or I think Aquaman's full steam ahead already.
Yeah, I was under the impression that they were closing in on finishing their principal shooting.
Yeah, we'll look this up later.
Yeah.
He'll put it in the opening notes.
I probably won't.
He won't.
But Aquaman's coming up.
Flash is coming up.
I see. I didn't know they were even making a Flash.
Oh, yeah. Well, because remember we talked about how they've gone through 2 or 3 different directors on the Flash movie already.
Yeah.
And so I'm curious about how they're going to... or what even they're going to do with Barry's story. Because when we leave him in Justice League, he's just getting the job at the Central City Forensics Lab, the crime lab. And so how much of Barry's story are we going to see dedicated to clearing his dad? Because I will tell you this for free. If they do a fucking Flashpoint movie, I'm going to be so goddamn pissed. Yeah. Because to me, Flashpoint is the worst thing that DC Comics has ever done.
Oof. I haven't read it or seen the animated, but...
I've read it and seen the animated, and I hate them both.
Dave's very angry right now. But I really don't want to see Barry. I don't want to see a rehashing of what's on the TV show.
Well, let me clarify. Well, I don't know if they've covered Flashpoint.
They did.
Okay. Here's the thing. I'm perfectly fine with an alternate Earth, alternate timeline story. I'm a Doctor Who fan. I love time travel stories.
Yeah. Okay.
Flashpoint has so many fucking problems, both in conception and in execution, that it makes me want to hit my head with a hammer.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. If you're going to tell Barry's story, tell Barry's story. What makes me afraid that they're going to do a Flashpoint story here is,
We jumped to Death of Superman that fast.
Exhibit A, but also the fact that the death of Barry's mom is clearly an issue for him.
Yeah.
Okay, and what I'm afraid is that because they've positioned him as a young character, an inexperienced character, he's not going to have the wisdom to recognize you don't go fucking around with the time stream.
Right.
Yeah.
And
giving him that much power that quick.
That soon.
with that lack of experience, yeah.
So that's
my big fear going forward.
Yeah, that's and one of my big fears is that everything will fall back into to Zack Snyder's old styles. It's clear that DC is beginning to play a little bit more and is willing to play a little bit more because, one, unlike Marvel, they are giving plenty of cameos to people.
Yeah.
They're like, let's bring in Batman. Screw it. I know he's not part of this film. I don't care. Let's bring in Ezra Miller and Flash. Give him a second. Wonder Woman was directed by Patty Jenkins. Total newcomer to this entire scene. And she killed it. DC has to recognize at this point
and give her a seat at the table going forward.
Yeah, she needs a seat at the table. Joss Whedon needs a seat at the table. I would like it if Bendis had some words to be contributing here.
You know what else I'd like to see? I'd like to see DC do some things that don't contribute to the larger narrative that they're building.
Yeah.
Kurt Busiek, you're familiar with that name, I'm sure. You may be. Kurt Busiek is a writer, has written for both Marvel and DC. He wrote the JLA Avengers crossover, a number of years ago. He's written the Avengers.
Picked up issue 1 at Bakersfield Comic Con.
He's written the Avengers, a really long, celebrated run on the Avengers.
I have that trade.
He's written a few issues of Justice League, but he's written a little of this, a little of that. He does Astro City primarily these days, which is a fantastic book. And he made the observation that it would be kind of cool to see things like a Metal Men movie. Things like that. Things that you can
in the universe, but don't
that don't affect the meta narrative. Not meta, but the overarching Justice League narrative. Because it seems hard for me to believe that you've got the Justice League running around. You've got Silas Stone, Victor's dad, doing all this cutting edge, like razor sharp cutting edge, tech research, and nobody else is doing anything like it. So give me some Metal Men.
Yeah.
Give me some Teen Titans. Give me some, and you can do the Teen Titans where they're not even related to the Justice League.
Yeah.
You can do any of a number of things.
Yeah, kind of like with Ant-Man or with Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2.
Which,
and 1.
But 1 at least has an Infinity Stone.
Oh, that's true. Okay.
But Volume 2 really has almost nothing to do with the greater Infinity.
And they show up on Earth, and not a single Avenger was seen, which kind of bugged me. But it
was also
Guardians of the Galaxy showed up on Earth.
No, they cut to Earth, and not a single Avenger was seen.
It was a pretty big thing happening.
There was not,
Earth.
All it would have taken would have been.
Oh, yeah.
Would have been like Iron Man showing up going, what the hell? And then cut.
Yeah. Yep.
Or any other.
I'm with you. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'd like to see DC start doing that instead of we're doing another Joker movie that doesn't have anything to do with the other Joker stuff we got going on.
Yeah.
I'm sick of the Joker.
I am.
I'm tired of the Joker.
Yeah. There's plenty of other
The only time I want to see the Joker
villains.
is if we get some sweet Mask of the Phantasm.
Well, have I talked about my Joker problem before?
That he should die?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Not on a podcast.
Here's
maybe another podcast.
Sure.
Yeah.
All right.
Because that's
definitely
a whole nother rabbit hole.
All right. So but that's what I'd like to see. Less Joker, less here. Let's screw around with the thing
maybe
we've already established.
Less known villains, less known.
Yeah, I mean, because one of the things that I like, one of the reasons that I loved the Batman show when I was a kid with Adam West and Batman the Animated Series, because Batman has this outstanding roster of villains.
Oh, yeah.
You know, yeah.
And that's even on the back of my Nightfall trade. It has 9 villains that are on the back.
Yeah. And
then introduces Bane.
We only ever get the Joker.
Yeah.
And man, I'm so tired of that ass.
Yeah.
I really liked the Scarecrow.
Liked the Scarecrow.
You know, great, in Batman Begins. Excuse me. Bane.
I didn't like
Bane. I really wanted to like Bane, but no, he sucked.
That whole movie. Anyways,
anyway, give me a Clayface. You know, we can do Clayface with CGI. Give me a Mr. Freeze.
Maybe not Steppenwolf CGI.
Fuck. Give me the Riddler. Give me the Riddler.
I liked.
Okay, so I guess this will kind of like transition us a little more to like maybe what we didn't like so much, because again, this was not a perfect movie.
What didn't we like about the movie though?
What bugged me was the Steppenwolf CGI. It was very cartoony to me.
I didn't feel that way.
To me, Steppenwolf is an alien. The fact that he looks as human as he does is not problematic for me. I didn't think there was anything wrong with CGI. What I wish we could get away from is the computer modulation of voices.
Okay.
You know?
Yeah.
But at the same time, one of my biggest problems with X-Men Apocalypse was that his voice was Oscar Isaac the entire time, and I feel like
that's
his voice
different.
Should be deep and low.
Yeah.
And,
sure.
You know,
absolutely.
There's one point in the movie where he's like, "I'm Apocalypse." I'm like, "Hey, Apocalypse's voice finally showed up."
Yeah.
Instead of Poe Dameron and clunky cosplay.
An Ivan Ooze cosplay.
Yes.
Power Rangers. Okay.
Yeah.
So anyway.
Yeah. That was one of the other one that I was kind of iffy on was the whole Superman being brought back to life zombie status, where at the end of BVS it was kind of established that he might have already still been living, maybe in a coma,
or started healing
because the dirt started floating up.
Yeah. And it was very clear that when they dig him up, he's perfectly preserved.
He has not decomposed a bit.
And do we know the time frame?
So he's almost in like a stasis.
It has been, we don't know how long it's been since BVS. Long enough to establish a memorial.
A few months.
True.
A few months.
Because she was talking about how for a little while, Lois Lane kind of clues us into how long it's been since his death.
That's okay.
Because she, and the bank forecloses on the house. I wager that was a couple months. She said it was during the grieving, so that's been at least a month because that's a process.
Okay. Probably,
I would say probably 2 to 4 months.
I was thinking more like 6 to 8.
I'd allow it.
Yeah.
Maybe even a year.
See, that's
6 months to a year.
And that would make sense for everything.
And Clark would not have decomposed in that amount of time. His suit might have gotten a little rattier, but
yeah, maybe. Yeah.
He would have gotten a little sunken.
Yeah.
No, Clark wouldn't have.
Fair.
Yeah. But I think, the whole zombie thing was kind of weird.
Explain zombie thing, because I don't know exactly what your problem...
That they wanted to bring him back from the dead, which I get. It's a comic book thing. Yeah.
Sure.
Down.
People come back from the dead all the time.
I fully expected that he was going to just show up. Like, at one point we would see his grave and we'd see like... I'm alive again! No explanation. I like that they were like, let's use our collective science and
which matched up with the Kryptonian science and stuff, bringing it back to the ship of Man of Steel and BVS.
Right.
I dug that part. I think just the way they did it in general.
Well, in the unless I'm misunderstanding how this worked, the mother boxes reactivate when Superman dies.
Right.
Okay. However, in BVS at the end we see the footage of the Victor of Cyborg being created with the mother box.
Yeah.
With a functioning mother box.
Yeah.
So
that's a whole. And they even mentioned in this one that they found it in World War I,
which was a scene that should have been
in the movie.
It's in the DVD.
Right.
Post credits in the DVD.
Yeah.
It was not in the film, and I didn't understand that decision at all because that should have been.
They filmed it after.
Oh my gosh, I didn't see the post-credit scene.
They didn't
in the DVD. I didn't watch it.
Anyway, keep going.
As far as my dislikes in the film, I I never noticed Superman's mustache problems.
See, I did a little bit, and sometimes it bugged me, but after a while, because I knew it was there, and I knew
I looked for it, and
I'm like,
gave up because I couldn't find it.
it's weird. It looks kind of funny. It looks like he's kind of talking CG-like, but okay, I'm going to go with it.
Yeah, the graphics didn't bother me. What did bother me was the image of the 3 squares after the parademon died. Why does an exploding parademon display lore in his death?
Yeah, that's a good question.
It was a really weird, like, why is that there? You know, if it was like a part of their armor, and we had discussed that maybe that it, like, you know, it's the point that's like the weakest,
it's like
or
the
something.
negative space kind of thing.
Yeah, if it was more established, but it was just like, oh hey, there's these random 3 squares that keep showing up every time a parademon explodes. Like,
and I've seen a few other things.
I wouldn't. I mean, come on, is it that hard to establish that Bruce is looking for information? I mean, clearly it's hard for them to establish that Bruce is looking for information on these things. Because, I mean, when he tries to research Superman, he can't even figure that out. But, yeah, I don't know. That was really the only part of the whole film where I was like, that doesn't make sense. Like, that feels lazy. Yeah. Really? Did just 3 boxes show up when a bad guy explodes?
Yeah, it doesn't make a lot of sense.
Logistically, I wasn't really into it.
Right.
Dave, do you have any major hiccups with the film that...
No. I mean, there were minor things, you know, again, like I mentioned, the Batman 20 years has been doing this for 20 years thing. And clearly the cops know about it, but I have a hard time accepting that...
With the giant-ass light in the sky?
Yeah, that no
one else has noticed.
That no one else understands what Batman is.
Yeah,
you know?
And in BVS, there is that point where the cop says, like, I knew he existed, I just never saw him before.
Right.
You know, I didn't think I would encounter
Which
him.
I guess sometimes makes sense, depending on...
It's a big city.
But still.
Yeah.
But otherwise, no, there was not really anything where I went, the fuck is that shit?
Yeah.
No, I liked it a lot.
Yeah. And you know what? I think going in for me, and I mentioned this on our lead-up podcast, like, I didn't have any expectations going into this movie because how bad the last ones were. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to watch it to watch it, and if it's good, awesome. If it's not, par for the course. Okay, whatever.
Yeah.
And I think that helped me, whereas I know a lot of people hated all the other movies. Maybe not Wonder Woman, but so they're like, they went into this movie wanting to hate it, and so they did.
Yeah.
So I've seen a lot of reviews of friends and even just general reviewers about that.
I think critics have been entirely too harsh on it. I think it is just commonplace to hate on a DC movie at this point.
Yeah.
And as far as I'm concerned,
did an hour and a half of it.
as far as I'm concerned, they ran out of runway.
Yeah.
And
but I feel like
they got off of it. They're in the air.
Yeah.
They're ready to go. If they can just keep climbing a little further, it'll be smooth sailing, and they'll be up above the clouds.
I think one of the main specific things I heard from somebody about the movie was that one of the things that they didn't like was the rehash of the storyline. The generic alien comes to Earth, tries to take it over with some sort of ancient artifact that the good guys have to get back. But I mean, that's such a typical...
I legitimately do not feel that this was the Avengers story. There is no greater organization at work getting these groups together. The groups are getting together of actual superpowered people and not just extremely skilled or relatively stronger than most human people.
Sam Jackson.
And Captain America.
Oh, yeah.
But,
true.
you know, there is a grieving aspect to it that they're all trying to figure out how to handle this the best. And it's not because there's secrets or anything like that. They're all very cards on the table. This is what's going on. And I feel like that's not at all the internal conflict of Avengers.
But still, I mean, and I get that, but I know a lot of people are like, yeah, but the general tone, like, they don't care about the specifics.
Oh, you mean
like
a bad guy shows up and a team assembles because it's too big for any of them to handle? Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Does a comic book trope beneath you now?
Yeah.
Well, how the hell else are they supposed to decide to join up? Because they're besties?
Yeah. Yeah.
they're going to go do karate in the garage.
Yeah, welcome to comic books.
Yeah.
If you want a team to assemble, they need a global threat that none of them can handle on their own.
Yeah.
And guess what? They can't. Even when they get together, they can't handle it on their own. They have to get Superman to show up, and then it fails on them. This wasn't Avengers. I'm sorry.
I guess there is one thing that I mentioned in our pre-show podcast that I didn't understand the outpouring of grief, at Superman's death when he's only been there 20 minutes.
Yeah.
I think that feeling that I had was even exacerbated by Justice League. I mean, the memorial,
and even because he went on trial for destroying and kind of being a menace, and
and all that
Commissioner
stuff.
Gordon, he's a menace. wrong. J.K. Simmons, wrong with him.
Yeah. So, and for everybody to be grieving and missing Superman and all that,
But if you look at that opening video,
sure,
there's clearly stuff we didn't see.
but that
right.
I mean,
But
doesn't
again,
fix it.
given the general tones of the other two movies and
yeah.
and
I mean,
the
short
setups,
of making
But
it prequel for Superman.
Again, I just feel like there's like the time span is not long enough.
No.
He's been there for 20 minutes.
Yeah.
basically.
And that goes back to my argument that you haven't earned the death of Superman story.
Right.
yet.
Oh yeah.
I do think they stuck to where they should be with this story. That our problem is Steppenwolf and it's not Darkseid.
Yes.
Our problem is, getting them together and many of them figuring out where they actually stand on this team, and not because, they aren't getting along, but because they haven't quite gotten...
They've never done this.
They've never done... Yeah, the Flash is tripping,
Like literally. Yeah.
He's a mess. Wonder Woman has been,
On her own.
reclusive. He wants her, Batman wants her to be a leader, and she realizes she needed that push.
There is
because she is the hope.
Yeah, the other thing, and this is super minor, this is just my little nerd shit. The fact that Barry's suit is what protects him from the friction of his speed, I'm not here for that.
I didn't take it as that.
That's what I understood.
I took it as if he wore any other clothes, he would catch on fire.
It's the same thing.
The clothing,
But it protects keeps him from being naked, and it's the only way he can stay from being naked.
See, because in the comics, all the speedsters, Flash, Wally, Max Mercury, Jay Garrick, everybody has this sort of inertial...
Force field.
Yeah, we'll call it that. It's a naturally generated, like a force we'll go with force field. I don't know what the fuck else to call it. Yeah. But there's a force field that they generate that keeps them from burning up, that keeps their clothing from burning up.
That's part of their superpower.
Yeah, that's part of the power.
Yeah.
That's part of the speed power. And if Barry talks about being able to access the speed force.
Oh, yeah.
That should protect him. So he could run naked if he wanted to. He could run wearing a spandex suit if he wanted
Maybe
to.
he doesn't know.
You know what?
I mean, unless he's covered in scars, it's not like he's burned himself before. He's probably just sciencey and going, I better not take my chances.
Well, but the first time he had the speed, he didn't have the suit.
Yeah.
You don't just build a suit out like that on the off chance that maybe I'll get super speed powers.
Maybe he's pushing for... Maybe he did it, realized he had super speed, and he thought, I keep getting faster and faster. I better take super... I'm clearly reaching at straws here. I don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah, I'll get you though.
I get it though. That's some some deep core nerd shit.
I was very upfront about that.
Yeah.
Super nerd shit that isn't going to bother anybody but me.
Right.
Yeah. Well,
So I think besides all that, I
loved it.
really like that movie.
I liked it a lot too.
I want to see it again.
I'm going to. I got to take Charlotte to see it.
Oh, awesome. Yeah.
So.
Yeah. No, it was so good.
It was fun. It was lighthearted. It wasn't dark.
I turned to Brian as soon as it was done, and I was
Yeah, we're
like,
like-
dude, that movie was so good.
Yeah. Yeah, we had the same reaction.
I haven't had that reaction to... I mean, I didn't even have that reaction to Ragnarok, and I really liked... I loved Ragnarok. It was great.
Same.
Yep. But there were... we finished it, and we were like... Not what we came in for by any means.
Yeah.
I didn't have a whole lot of expectations, but I didn't feel like they pushed any characters further than they needed to, as far as back toward my childhood's versions of
We're
them.
still talking about Justice League.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
And I feel like we really got the movie we've been promised since Man of Steel.
I concur. I agree wholeheartedly.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, at this point, we've gone way too far in this podcast to do this in one.
What?
To do it in one
That
shot.
happened here?
I know.
Oh, man.
So be looking out for a 1 point, or I guess this would be a 12.5 for this podcast episode, probably sometime over the weekend. And And real quick, you guys want to do some other plugs?
Like, well, for what?
Well, what are you?
So I'm watching on a podcast.
What are you watching
called,
right now?
Sneaky Geek.
I'm playing nothing because I've been playing Pokemon Ultra Sun.
Yeah.
I finally finished. I finally completed my Pokedex on Pokemon Sun. Complete. First time I've had a full Pokedex.
Hell yeah.
Ever?
Since Blue.
Since Blue.
Since Generation 1.
Generation
So I was super happy about
How
that.
many are in
We'll just
the
have to
little,
do that too.
Pokedex?
302.
That's more than twice as many as the original Pokedex.
Yeah,
That's not
but
even
for Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, it's like 400 and
get
something.
400.
Wow.
Plus the rumor is you can unlock the national Pokedex,
Which gets all 1,000 now? 900,
800 and something.
Yeah, there's
That's
way too many.
insane. Brian, what are you doing right now? Anything?
What am I doing?
You watching anything?
Actually, I want to, because I saw the trailer for the new CW team up for this season between all the super shows, and it looks really cool.
Oh, Crisis on Earth X.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to that too, even though I've only watched a few episodes of The Flash, because that is one of my favorite JLA JSA crossovers.
Yeah. That's what you're saying, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so it looks really cool, and I really want to go back and maybe not rewatch everything, but rewatch like season openers, season finales, the other crossovers. Kevin Smith directed a bunch of episodes of a bunch of the shows. I love me some Kevin Smith, so
Yeah.
I'll watch those and then kind of work my way up a little bit to this new crossover.
Glad you mentioned that, because I have to set the DVR to record those, because the Ziglets
yeah.
are not going to be here for that.
Oh, okay.
Oh, right on, right on.
Also, making my way through The Punisher. It's been a busy weekend, so I'm only halfway through it.
Haven't seen a single episode.
Oh, it's good.
Is it?
It's dark
I've heard it's good.
and it's
Cool.
good.
It's all over the Reddit.
How many
also,
episodes?
13.
Oh, we went back to the 13 model. Cool.
Yeah, it was just 8 for Defenders.
Right on.
And then also, Runaways just came out. The first 3
has that
episodes are up.
started?
Yeah.
It's on Hulu.
Hulu. First 3 episodes are up. and they're
Interested in
doing
checking that out.
new episode every Tuesday, I want to say.
Okay,
Cool, cool. I'm really excited for S.H.I.E.L.D. to come back. I'm really excited. I'm still working my way through
first.
Legion. I haven't watched a single episode of so many shows right now. I've suddenly realized that the Doctor Who Christmas special is right around the corner.
Yeah.
And I got really excited for it. So yesterday at the comic book shop, I picked up all the Torchwood comics.
Oh, yeah.
That
Nice.
had come out. And I'm just so excited to absorb something Doctor-y, because I saw that they had a short clip of the episode.
I have not watched it.
Yeah.
I won't tell you anything about it, but I
Thank you.
can say that
I'm very excited for it now.
the clip that they showed was everything I would want out of the two crotchetiest of the doctors together.
Absolutely.
So it's going to be a grumpy old man fest.
David, all of a sudden I lost his name. The guy who is,
Oh, Argus Filch.
yes.
Yeah.
David Bradley.
Yeah.
So if I had to recast the first Doctor, David Bradley is perfect as the first Doctor.
Yeah.
If you saw Adventure in Time and Space, the 50th
still need to watch
anniversary,
that.
Still need to watch that.
There's a lot of that.
super good. Given that it is like the real world events that the creation of the show.
Yeah.
And he plays William Hartnell, who plays the first Doctor.
Right.
But still, it was so good, and he is so good.
I'm really excited because I have seen him as Argus Filch, character you're not
Yes.
supposed to be able to stand.
Yeah.
Then I saw him as the man who has kidnapped the dinosaurs,
Solomon on dinosaurs on a spaceship.
Dinosaurs on a spaceship.
Oh, that's right.
He was in
That's
Dinosaurs
right.
on a Spaceship, and his character, again, you're messing with dinosaurs and you're not being nice to them, but you're fucking up. So, again, and then to see him as Walder Frey,
Game of
the
Thrones.
single worst, cruelest son of a bitch in that show for me right now. Because
Oh,
I
right now
just
he's not
watched
caught
the
up.
Red Wedding.
Calm down, everybody. I was almost with you right there. I'm like, hey, let's. Oh, you're not there yet. Okay.
I cannot fathom him as anything but this man I just loathe. And he shows up and he's like, some would say even the Doctor. And I'm like, yeah, okay.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
You
sure
may
you're a
be-
kindly old man.
You
I'm
may
Katie,
be
you're little
a
grumpy.
doctor, but not the doctor.
So I'm really excited because he immediately, just with his own just air and vibe of presence, is kind of the kindly old codger that he was. And I think he nails it. And I cannot wait to see
I'm
Capaldi go,
super
boy,
excited.
I have been a crotchety old man before. And I hope that kind of affects why everything happens the way it does with his next regeneration.
I hope so.
Oh, yeah.
So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us this week.
Yeah. Please tell us how you liked the movie or disliked the movie.
Yeah, I want to hear all
we're
of
here for
the
it.
rants.
We're all available on the tweeters. Where are you on the tweeter?
I'm at Bryce Rankins.
I'm at Shield Agent B-Rom.
At Mr. Dave Ziegler.
But also at Sneaky Geek Pod.
At Sneaky Geek Pod. And if you want to reach out on Instagram, it's at Sneaky Geek Podcast. But
we're rarely on there.
We're rarely on there.
We're there, but we're not.
Hit us up on the Twitters.
Yeah.
So, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Catch you next time.
Adieu.